Hi, Liz. How are you
Hi,
today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So today is the day after summer solstice. It's June
Woo!
22nd, and we are almost in our final week of exploring infinite possibility. Ah, so I thought it'd be lovely for us to have tea time together to spiral back to the story that you shared at our happy hour for the beginning of the month. Um, so I just had a few questions to guide this conversation. Um,
Okay.
Starting with, what tea are you drinking today for our tea time?
That's such a good question. Okay, so I'm drinking a tea called Sunrise, and it's made by this most amazing woman, Camila Mitchell. Her tea company is called Teas with Meaning. And so what I love about this tea is that it's a sunrise tea that's made with chamomile. I just think that's genius, like most of us are starting our day like trying to get super wired and amped up, but it's chamomile. It's just really like soothing. And there's also some turmeric in it and ginger. I think it's really, really good.
Well, funny enough, I'm also drinking tea from our friend Camila, um, Teas with Meaning. And mine, I had her do a special one for July 4th coming up, and she named it Liberty,
I love
which I just
it.
think is hilarious. And it's got mint, ginger, lemon zest, orange peel, all sorts of just magical ingredients. And it's kind of a red color when you brew it. It's just beautiful.
Oh, nice. Oh, I should also say I put some honey in it too that I got from her from Shasta. And it's yeah, it's super good.
Well, cheers to our tea.
Cheers.
So I thought we would kick off this first experiment in tea, online tea time, with just this question of, having had this month to explore this theme of infinite possibilities. What does it mean to you now?
Mm. So I taught a summer solstice yoga class last night, and we explored this theme in my class. And at the end, I was asking students this question about possibility and what came up for them as we were moving. And one of my students said, the thing that kept coming up for me over and over again is that everything is possible. Everything is possible. What a mind blower that is. And when she said that, I was like, oh, yeah, that's it. That's totally what's been present for me too. It's really that idea of, where we put our focus is where our energy goes. And so when we focus our energy on what it is that we want to cultivate, then really anything and everything is possible. So I just feel like I've really been living that and feeling that in a lot of different ways this month. And it's been really just heart opening and inspiring. It's super cool.
Well, at the happy hour, you shared your journey kind of from the past to the present around this question of infinite possibility. So I'd love to just spend some time hearing about that story, just like what feels significant to share now, and then what it means for you looking at the present into the future. So kind of taking us on a journey around what this theme has looked like for you in your life, because a lot of the work that we want to do with Gratitude Blooming is really thinking about how these themes look like when you like live them, when you practice them, when you embody them. And I just feel like your story is such a reminder of what happens when you really live from that place of possibility.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so at the happy hour, I talked about how a few years ago I was at this business conference. I owned my own company, and I was at this business conference, and I had this very, it was an in-body experience. I feel like people talk about out-of-body experiences, but this was a very in-body experience where I was listening to a speaker who was talking about a group of people called the Wayfinders, and these are master navigators from Hawaii and the Polynesian Islands that they still do this today, but have been navigating for thousands of years. And what was remarkable about them is that they could sail just all these thousands of miles between islands without any of the modern instrumentation that we tend to think of as necessary to sail. And they did it just by watching and reading the signs that they saw. So the wind and the birds and the waves, but just also by really tuning into their own intuition and their own inner wisdom. So this woman was talking about this, and she said something to the effect of they were so in tune with their own hearts that they could sail for thousands of miles just by watching the way the waves broke across the front of the boat. And so when she said that, I had this just really wild experience. I'd never had anything like this happen before, where I started getting hot from my feet all the way up to the top of my head. And the room was just kind of shimmering and receding. It was just a really surreal experience. And so I knew it was important. I mean, it didn't feel like a fluke. And so that set me on this path of trying to learn more about first these wayfinders, and then just indigenous wisdom traditions in general. And the idea just being that there are cultures that have not been touched by our modern world, and what wisdom do they have to offer us? And so I started going down this path, and it was fascinating. I got really into shamanism. I was learning about all of this. And then I had my second baby. My son was born. And that was a really, really profound experience as well. I think I was more present to it than I had been with my daughter being born. And so after that, I went back and I was looking for information from all these wisdom traditions that I'd studied. And I started noticing that nobody was talking about this profound spiritual nature of childbirth. And I couldn't figure out why. And then it just suddenly hit me one day that it was because everybody that was writing about this and everybody that I'd studied, they were all men. And then it just sort of, the awareness just kind of like started opening up from there, where I started going backwards to how I was raised in a Southern Baptist house in Georgia. And I'd studied Buddhism, and it was just all of this, like, one moment after next, where I realized, well, the gods are men, and the teachers are men, and their disciples are men, and most of the people who are writing the books and educating us are men. And so there's a reason why they're not talking to me about the sacred nature of childbirth. They can't. They've never experienced it, and they can't tell me what they have not experienced. And that really set off an interest in me, because I kind of already knew that it just made no sense that there wouldn't be a divine feminine face of God, but it just really lit a fire under me to go and find it. And this was problematic, actually, because it felt like more than a hobby. It wasn't like I'm just going to do this, after work, for an hour or so. It was like all I wanted to do was research this. And I had this company that I was running, and I had these babies and all of this stuff to manage. But, it came to a head. I just felt like I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to follow this. So I ended up selling the company. That was about 2.5 years ago. And then I'd had a long period where I just had to process what that meant, and kind of, because there was a whole identity that I was walking away from. And one of the things I love about this theme of infinite possibility is what can emerge when you sit with life's uncertainties. And I was in a huge place of uncertainty because I had no idea what this meant. Like, what does this mean? How am I supposed to, can I make money from this? Can I make this a job? Like, I don't understand any of this. And, I feel like a lot of times I'm still in that uncertainty. So I had to go through this period of just quietness and kind of figuring out what was, what that identity of being a business owner had meant to me before I could find my path. But eventually I did. And then I started researching, and I've been doing that for the last couple years now. And I teach yoga that's based on the goddess traditions. I try to bring that into the classes that I teach. And I've been writing a book just about some of the research that I've done, but also about my journey towards this feminine face of God. So it's been quite an interesting ride. And one thing I want to say about that uncertainty is that, by the way, it's a very feminine, it's a very divine feminine thing. This is something that I've learned through studying these traditions, is that as opposed to having a set outcome, and like, this is the way we work, right? Like, we like our goals and we've got our set outcome, and we're going to go push towards that and power through our obstacles and persevere. And all of our stories are like that, right? Like we're conquering something. But this divine feminine wisdom and traditions, they invite you to step into flow, into this bigger flow of what's happening around you. And when you do that, you really don't know what's coming next. You're kind of just surrendering to this beautiful mystery. And it's scary, and it's very different than I think the way we are taught to operate in the world. But when you do that, it's like my yoga student said, literally everything is possible. And it might be even better than what you had imagined with your limited goal-oriented mindset that you started out with. So.
Oh, wow. I love how you started your story, Liz, with this idea of the wayfinders. And these are people that have ancient traditions and connection to land and just having to navigate just from sense. And it sounds like a lot of your story is also about wayfinding and tapping into what is it that you authentically want to do in the world. You know, the story of you leaving this successful business that you started to pursue this very unknown life path of being a writer and a explorer and a historian in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So like, what is it now when you look at this, the present and the uncertainty of, what the future holds, what does it look like for you to live into that place? And just what does it look like for day-to-day life, or just, what does it mean to you as you navigate the present to the future?
I think the word that's coming up for me is faith. And, faith is kind of a loaded word, right? There's a lot of, if you hear that there's a lot of religious connotations to faith, I think, particularly for someone like me who's been raised in a Western Christian tradition. But it's more about when we step into that flow, having faith that what is intended to unfold is going to unfold, and that it can actually be very beautiful. And I think a lot of our goal-oriented mindset is really, it comes from needing to control the situation. And we need to control it because we're afraid. We're afraid of what might be out there. And this is a very different way of living. It's an invitation to be open to what might come. And so I've just been dancing with that for the last couple of years. And it's by millimeters becoming more comfortable. But eventually over time, the evidence starts to build, I think, that none of us are on this journey alone. We have all kinds of help through magical friendships but then all kinds of unseen forces too. And so it's kind of like having faith that those structures are there to support me and that it's going to unfold. It's going to unfold. It's like, for example, I'm writing a book, and that's been clear. When I release like what exactly that needs to look like and when exactly that page needs to be written and exactly how that's going to be published, it flows so much more beautifully. So it's a lot about me just having faith and trusting that, that out of those uncertainties, good things can come.
Wow. Well, this is probably one of the most inspiring tea time online conversations I've had. Thank you so much for just sharing your story and like how you're really living into this idea of infinite possibility. I feel like it's just so inspiring for all of us, regardless of where we are in our lives. There is always this question of, the mystery of life. Like, how do we navigate, this? So, for those people that are going to be watching this video and like hearing your story, where can we find you? If people want to like contact you and find out more about your book and go to your yoga class, just be in touch with you.
Yeah, well, so I just happen to be teaching a class this Sunday in collaboration with Gratitude Blooming. It's going to be for those in the Bay Area, it's going to be in Roberts Regional Recreation Area. So you can Google where that is, but I've found a really beautiful grove of redwood trees. And so we're going to be exploring this question of infinite possibilities through the movement of yoga. And this is kicking off a monthly offering that Gratitude Blooming is going to be doing with yoga. So I'm super excited to do that. I don't teach on a regular basis otherwise. I like to teach with the turn of the wheel. So, with the solstices and whatnot. And then I have a website called, it's www.divinishi, get it? Haha, divinity, divinishi. So DIVINISHE.com. And I have a Facebook group of the same name. And I probably post more regularly in the Facebook group than on the website right now because I've been super focused on finishing the book. And when I get it done, I will be putting it out there so people can find it. Oh, and I'm also on Instagram, same handle, Divinity. So if you have any interest in this feminine face of God and want to join that conversation, I would love, love, love to see you jump in, especially to the Facebook group, and add your voice, because I'm pretty passionate about this.
Well, Liz, I'm so grateful to have a magical friendship with you, and just to be exploring this tea hour for the first time, diving into the unknown of what's possible, and these monthly yoga classes to really step into these different themes every month. And so just, I think our collective hope is that for those of you that are inspired by the story, it just reinforces the fact that none of us are alone, and we're all learning how to be to see what's possible and to believe in what's possible in our lives. So
absolutely.
Thank you everyone for watching our tea hour and participating. We are so grateful for you. And and you can find out more about the monthly themes at gratitudeblooming.com, on Instagram as well. And we're going to be wrapping up this month's theme and starting another new theme for next month of July. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.